Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Majority Leader, for confirming my earlier statement that this is the first regular meeting of this committee. So this will be the procedure which we will follow. We will invite the appointee to make a statement, and then after administering the oath. This is a procedure, and then we will hear from the oppositors if they are present, and then we will now proceed with the questions from the committee members, and then we will proceed with our deliberation. So may I ask the Secretary, Commission Appointment Secretary Chu, to administer the oath to Secretary Leila De Lima.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings? So help you God.
I do swear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor.
Good morning, Secretary Leila De Lima. You have the floor, ma'am. You can.
Good morning, po.
You can use this time to introduce yourself to the committee members, and then as well as make a preliminary statement. And I'm sure you can also probably answer already the issues raised against you, if you have seen and read the sworn oppositions. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I wish to make an opening statement. Good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the Commission on Appointments. I come here in full recognition of this august body's constitutional mandate to scrutinize and pass upon appointments in line with constitutional checks and balances. After nearly 4 whole years in the Department of Justice, I come here before you as someone who has worn and is wearing many hats, all of which in some way inform who I am and the manner by which I have endeavored to discharge my mandate thus far as the Secretary or the ad interim Secretary of Justice. I come before you as a daughter who has endeavored to do her parents proud, especially her father, who was himself a lawyer and a public servant during his time, and who is constantly the benchmark I measure myself against in terms of my professional success and integrity. A single mother whose marriage has long since been judicially annulled, and who has been blessed with 2 sons and 2 grandchildren, the eldest of both sets being children with autism, who have been the Lord's unexpected gifts to our family and my constant sources of strength and inspiration. An independent career woman who has made a name for herself as a lawyer and as a professional in her own right, having handled high-profile election cases, including what has since been dubbed the Maguindanao electoral fraud of 2007, during which the call of duty of an advocate required me to traverse the so-called Ampatuan territory during the height of the clan's power, which, unknown to most of us back then, was but a prelude to the extreme levels of atrocity certain members of said family, we will learn 2 years later, were apparently capable of. As the former chairperson of the Commission on Human Rights, appointed by the same president, who was even then linked by contemporary reports to the 2007 Maguindanao election controversy, due to her known political allies of the Ampatuan clan, and as such chairperson, endeavored to bring human rights and the rights-based approach to governance to the consciousness of the public in order to compensate for the Commission's jurisprudentially acknowledged status as a paper tiger. And now as someone who has served as the Secretary of Justice or ad interim Secretary of Justice for nigh on 4 full years now, having been unexpectedly given the mandate by then President-elect Benigno S. Aquino III, and now coming before the Honorable Commission on Appointments to seek the confirmation of such mandate. Having this much crammed into 4 years characterized by the literally unrelenting daily demands of public service in a department that perhaps has the broadest scope of mandate, is, to be frank and to put it plainly, both a blessing and a curse. It is a curse, so to speak, because by the very nature of this job, performing it means that there will always be a losing party, and hence someone will always feel aggrieved. It has been said that it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. In my experience, it is impossible to faithfully perform the mandate of Secretary of Justice without incurring negative sentiments, varying in degrees, from mere flack to outright wrath from some sectors. One thing I can say with complete equanimity, though, is that as far as I am concerned, I have made no enemies, because all I have ever done is do my job, which is to deliver justice, nothing more, nothing less. To deliver justice, I have to be a truth seeker, and that is all we in the DOJ care about. From the moment we hit the ground running, from the then standing DOJ resolutions on various major cases, such as those relating to the Ampatuan Massacre, Ruby Rose Barameda, Jerry Ortega cases, among others, to the investigation conducted by the Incident Investigation and Review Committee, or IIRC, of which I was chair, into the tragic August 23, 2010 Rizal Park hostage-taking crisis, the Norio O'Hara extortion allegations, the notorious Dominguez Brothers kidnapping syndicate cases, the Makati bus bombing incident, the Leia Nang or septic tanks lake case, the Atimonan massacre case, the death of suspected Ozamis gang leader Ricky Cadavero while in the custody of members of the PNP, the Balintang Channel incident, the Global Pag-ibig Fund case, Amalilio and Rasuman large-scale financial scams, and the PDUF and Malampaya Fund scams, to name but only a few of the high-profile cases we've handled. It was never about who will be charged, but whether the conclusion and action we will be taking is based solely on the merits and the evidence gathered and on record. On the other hand, being brought before the Commission now is also a blessing, because I come before you not as a wet behind the ears rookie who naively and blindly promises to deliver the moon and the stars in order to gain your approval. Therefore, none of you would have to wonder if I'm sincere or if I am engaging in double talk. By now you would know that with me, what you see is what you get, which is someone who knows exactly what the job demands and even exactly demanding the job is. Being part of the executive was truly a whole different ballgame for someone who has been an advocate my entire career up to that point.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt for
Excuse us, Secretary, yes?
because we have simultaneous meetings and I'm also the majority leader in the Defense Committee. So I'm asking the honorable members here who are members of the Defense Committee if there are any objections to any of the promotions there. Kasi kung wala po, i-approve na po namin. Baka naman sabihin nyo, ito pinalusutan kami nito si Rudy. So I will not move there. So everybody is here okay sa defense po. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Sorry for that, Madam Secretary. Continue pa.
No problem. May I continue, Your Honors? Being part of the executive was truly a whole different ballgame for someone who has been an advocate my entire career up to that point. First as a lawyer in private practice, then as the head of the constitutional watchdog for human rights abuses. It is literally a 24/7 job that recognizes no rest day, no holiday, no sacred day, and where anything can happen at any given moment. The matters that the public sees the DOJ handling as reported in the media is not even 10% of what occupies our time. Aside from the inevitable paper and administrative work and cases that must be seen to in order to keep the DOJ and all of its attached agencies running, there are the legal opinions that we render to guide our fellow public servants and even private persons. And of course, assignments from the President, to name but a few. Typhoons such as Pablo, Sendong, and Yolanda strike, the DOJ is on hand to advise the President on what he can do, how we can accomplish it, what agencies or tiers of government units may be tapped, provisions to invoke, and perhaps just as importantly, what are the conditions or limitations for the exercise of governmental power under such circumstances. Foreign poachers are caught in flagrante delicto within Philippine waters or exclusive economic zone, or a foreign vessel suddenly finds itself aground in a Philippine UNESCO protected coral reef. The DOJ is one of the agencies called upon to advise concerned officers and officials of the possible legal repercussions of alternative courses of action. The public might think all we do is investigate and prosecute crimes, but we do so much more to uphold the rule of law. Through our legal opinions, for instance, we make sure that other government agencies are guided in taking the right course of action. Our legislature has passed many, many good laws, especially those governing procurement and the spending of public funds, but implementing them becomes a challenge, not merely because those charged with implementing them have evil intent, but because they simply are not equipped to navigate the intricacies of the law and the nuances of the Constitution. Thus, I take this mandate as Attorney General of the Republic very seriously. Therefore, I have eliminated past practices that tend to diminish the capability of members of the legal staff to make independent assessments of the legal issues involved by implementing reforms that ensure that our state counsels and lawyers know that their duty is to advise parties as to what they ought to know about the law and not what they want to believe the law says. Integrity reforms and initiatives have been made across the DOJ and its attached agencies, especially by making sure that those at the top levels set a good example for the rank and file, because I know for a fact that the most important resource of the department is resource. Its officials, lawyers, administrative and technical staff, and so forth. A few rotten eggs may give the agency a bad name, but if those rotten eggs are in leadership positions, they can mar and compromise and even cripple the institution. Hence, I have had no qualms about ordering investigations and even entrapment operations against employees and officials of the DOJ, which have led to the separation from the service of 2 directors of the Bureau of Corrections, 1 director of the National Bureau of Investigation, among others. The filing of charges against prosecutors and their staff, as well as against immigration officials, and even including the chief of staff of a former commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration, who were found responsible for or involved in incidents like the suspicious escape of a South Korean fugitive while in the BI's custody, the escape from Philippine jurisdiction of individuals for whom the BI was previously put on, including another South Korean fugitive, a Canadian teacher involved in the death of 2 minor students, the Reyes brothers, among others, and even due to immigration officials and employees' complicity in human trafficking activities, particularly in the Diosdado Macapagal International Airport. These efforts are on top of the establishment of internal affairs units in the National Prosecution Service, the launch of the Code of Conduct for NPS prosecutors and members of the prosecutorial staff. My 4 years of experience has also taught me that the proper discharge of the DOJ's mandate reaches its fullest potential when we work in cooperation amongst ourselves and with other government agencies. Within the DOJ, I have promoted a paradigm shift that fosters coordination between concerned agencies in order to strengthen case buildup and ensure successful prosecution of cases filed in court. So too, through cooperation with the DIL, PNR, PNP, Office of the Ombudsman, COA, among others, we have formed committees and bodies that synchronize our efforts to combat illegal gambling, illegal logging, illegal mining operations, extrajudicial killings, and forced disappearances, and other forms of human rights violations, graft and corruption, and human trafficking. In fact, through the successes of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, or IACAT, which the DOJ chairs, and for which investigative, prosecutorial, and immigration-related support services are rendered, but whose accomplishments could not have been achieved without the full cooperation of all other agencies involved, we finally succeeded in having the Philippines removed from the Tier 2 watch list, which success we have maintained for the last 2 years or 3 years. But my insight into the operations of the DOJ has also taught me that it also has a role in new initiatives that will define the Philippine legal system for future generations, such as through a thorough and comprehensive review of our criminal laws through the Criminal Code Committee, the establishment of the Office for Competition, the Office of Alternative Dispute Resolution, and the Cybercrime Office, among others. Thus, the DOJ does not only respond to existing legal issues, it works to prevent legal problems from arising through the rendering of sound legal advice, and even looks forward to defining and redefining the Philippine legal landscape to make it more responsive to the needs of the Filipino people. Your Honors, I do not claim to be an expert on all areas of the law. I do not claim either that I have never made any errors in judgment or that I am incapable of making them in the future. Quite frankly, I don't think anyone can make such a claim. But I can say one quality that a Secretary of Justice must have, and which I know I deliver and will continue to deliver: the singular tenacity to do what needs to be done without fear or favor. I have proven this time and again, whether my critics acknowledge it or not. Back when I was appointed as chairperson of the CHR, my appointment was dubbed as a controversial choice because there were those who entertained the thought that I was selected in order to silence me as one of the voices that protested the results of the 2007 elections. Whatever then President Arroyo's motivation may have been in appointing me, only she would know for sure. But I have proven that I cannot be silenced by a misguided sense of utang na loob. Nor can I be intimidated by attempting to instill fear of the consequences that may be visited upon me, whether it be threat to my life and limb or crass forms of public harassment, both of which I have had to endure in the last 4 years. Some have called me a controversial public figure. I will not and cannot deny it. Back when I was the chairperson of the CHR, public advocacy was our most effective and important weapon against the then prevailing culture of silence and impunity. A time when people, including journalists, were threatened with both legal and extralegal action against exercising their freedom of expression and freedom of the press. Being heard and being seen by the public was our best weapon after the Supreme Court had decided that we had no quasi-judicial, prosecutorial, or even compulsory powers. Thus, the nature of the job demanded that we be visible. Perhaps that visibility was inevitably carried over when I transitioned into the DOJ. But I never asked to be controversial. In fact, it would have been impossible to remain controversial when high-profile cases kept arising. They just fall on my lap. The only way perhaps to keep a low profile is to not do anything worth public notice. Therefore, I take being called a controversial public figure for what it is, an indication that I am being true to my commitment, real and proven these last 4 years of taking on all the challenges that remain ahead. With that, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Chair and members, I submit myself for your consideration. I humbly and fervently pray for your confirmation. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Secretary. Before we proceed with questions or some comments from the members of this committee, we will give you a chance to confront your oppositors should they be here present.
Yes, Your Honor.
There was a sworn opposition to you filed by former Congressman Orlando Fua way back in 2011. So we have had sufficient time to read it, and as well, and you have also filed your reply to it. So the chair considers that those two documents, for which you have had 3 years to go over the two documents, sufficient enough explanation. But there is also a sworn opposition from Virginia Libunao, who is not here. But you have not taken the time, Madam Secretary, to answer it. Maybe you can answer it in writing if you want. But the chair makes it of record that as a lawyer, I've read the complaint, and it's about some procedures in your office, and the problem started with your predecessor. Actually, there were conflicting decisions. So maybe.
In a nutshell, Your Honor,
Yes,
I
go
can
ahead,
state my position on that. This opposition filed by Mrs. Virginia Libunao. She was formerly a BI personnel, and she was terminated from service on account of grave misconduct. There was a complaint from a foreign national about alleged kidnapping and extortion from a group of BI personnel, and she happens to be part of those charged by that foreign national. I'm referring to the oppositor, Mrs. Libunao. So even before my time, my predecessors, then former Secretary Raul Gonzalez and Secretary Agnes de Venadera, they both rendered a resolution adverse to her. Although the first decision, a resolution rendered by former Secretary Raul Gonzalez, was it modified the penalty recommended by the BI from dismissal from service to 3 months suspension. Now, during the time of Secretary Agnes de Venadera, she also acted on it, and she reinstated the penalty of dismissal. And during my time, so it was a repetitive plea on the part of the oppositor, Mrs. Libunao. And I reviewed the records, and I affirmed, or I sustained, I agreed with the resolution of Secretary de Venadera. And as a matter of fact, Your Honor, the oppositor elevated the matter to the Civil Service Commission, and the Civil Service Commission sustained the action of my action in sustaining the dismissal penalty. So I guess
Yes, Madam Secretary.
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, the oppositor, of course, and I think she pursued them. But the incident, I hope that you have done something within the department so that incidents like this will no longer happen in the future, where there is confusion because of apparently conflicting resolutions of the secretary. Not you, but your predecessors.
The previous, and the conflict actually, Your Honor, has something to do only with an error in the date of the resolution.
Yeah, I mean, how is your record keeping in the department? I mean,
I'd like to say that
have you improved the record
it
keeping?
has improved. There have been, I must admit, there have been previous instances of misplacement of records. Early on, when I first came in, that's one of the things that I discovered. There were misplaced or even missing records. But of course, I directed them to trace those records, and we have put in or installed measures.
Yes, ma'am.
Petition.
Sige po, salamat po. Parang wake-up call lang yung letter ni yung opposition ni Ms. Libunao. So I've been informed that present here today is one of the oppositors, Ms. Sandra Cam. So may we call on Ms. Sandra Cam and ask our secretary, the CA secretary, to administer the oath to Ms. Sandra Cam.
Wala. Considered properly notified. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings? So help you God. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Honors.
Thank you, Ms. Cam. Although your sworn opposition was only filed on June 2, 2014, The chairman, and I'm assuming all the members, have had sufficient time to go over it. We have read it, and it's on file with us. And I give them. And I observed that it's a mix of some personal knowledge and some allegations based on reports that you have received. So I'd like to ask you, Ms. Cam, if you have some additional statements to make, but the appeal of the chair to you is to limit yourself to those of your personal knowledge, because that is, in my opinion, that is the essence of executing a sworn statement, that you are executing a statement based on personal knowledge. So, Ms. Cam, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Your Honors. May I ask, please, Mr. Chairman, if you can allow me to read my opening.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Honorable members of this august body, ladies and gentlemen here, good morning. Public office is a public trust. Public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people, serve them with utmost responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency, act with patriotism and justice, and lead modest lives. Public officers, whether elected or appointed, are in charge of running and governing the country, and thus their position entails utmost responsibility and diligence. Because of the nature of their duties and functions, the presence of these officials will have a great effect on the lives of many. Conversely, if a public officer proves himself or herself to be unfit for the office reposed upon her, it is my duty as a citizen of this state to bring the matter to the attention of the people and of the proper authorities, which is the Commission on Appointments. That is why I am here today, to plead before this Honorable Commission not to confirm the appointment of Leila De Lima as head of the Justice Department. Aristotle once said, at his best, man is the noblest of all animals, but separated from law and justice, he is the worst. I need not stress how greatly our people depend on the Department of Justice, the very agency of the government tasked to maintain law and order and to protect and avenge them from crime, criminality, and anarchy. Sad to say, however, under the leadership of Leila De Lima, the department revolts against its very own vision. Thus, instead of a just and peaceful society anchored on the principles of transparency, accountability, fairness, and truth, we live in riotous and lawless communities anchored on selective justice, bias, political alliances, and lies.
Mr. Chairman,
Cam, yes,
point of
Majority
inquiry
Leader.
lang po. How long opening statement po, kung pwede ko lang malaman po?
Napakakunti lang po dito. This
Thank
is very short than
Thank you, ma'am.
Secretary.
Thank you. Proceed, Ms. Cam.
Set aside her fame and countless television appearances for the past years, De Lima's and her Department of Justice have shown us nothing but crimes and disorder, fugitives exiting the country with impunity, politically motivated prosecutions, baby treatment of a scam queen, ill treatment and lousy protection of state witnesses, and a snail-like administration of justice. Our state can no longer afford to entrust the department to its hair. It is time for the department to instill fear in the hearts and minds of criminals and lawless elements, regardless of their full political affiliations, to render justice to the victim's crime by putting felons in bars, and to stretch unsparingly to everyone the mighty arms of the law. We cannot tolerate selective justice and due favors to crooks, flight of fugitives, sloth prosecution, and the pampering of crooks and thieves anymore. So I present myself before this honorable body today to bring justice to the Department of Justice, an institution victimized by the incompetence and apathy of its very leader. I humbly present before this honorable commission an affidavit I myself executed to oppose the confirmation of Leila De Lima's appointment as Secretary of Justice, praying that this humble effort of mine will bring righteousness to a department turned wicked because of its head. After all is said and done, more is said than done. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Thank you, Ms. Cam. When you mentioned the affidavit, are you referring to the same affidavit already on file with us, ma'am? The June 2, the one we received?
Yes, Your Honor.
So
Yes, Your Honor.
it's of record already, ma'am, and all members have been given a copy. But I want to ask the appointee if, Madam Secretary, have you been given a copy and have you had time to go over the affidavit?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I had the occasion to go over the affidavit.
Yes, ma'am. But before you proceed, I have noticed 7 categories in the affidavit. So I'm assuming you have read it. So if you care to answer any point raised in the affidavit, I have noticed 7 main categories there.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much. May I just state for the record that a copy of this sworn affidavit of Oppositor Sandra Kam was served on my office, only in the afternoon of Monday, June 2. And I saw this only yesterday. But of course, in preparation for today's appearance before this honorable committee, I endeavored to really read this opposition. And I would have wanted to submit a written comment, if only that I was given also a reasonable time. But I can waive that because I can respond to these points or issues raised by the oppositor.
Oh, which do you prefer, to respond now or a written response? Because for the information of everybody, I also received a letter from the office of the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, and he's really asking for so, and we really have to also give in to his request. Otherwise, he will ask questions, his questions in plenary session if we will not. So, this chair is open to another hearing actually. So you will have time to answer. So how do you prefer to answer, Madam Secretary, now or in writing?
I can always submit a written comment, Your Honor. But I'm submitting myself to the discretion of the Honorable Commission.
Sige,
or the
ano na lang,
Honorable
Madam
Committee.
Secretary, points that you want to answer now, you can answer now.
Yes, I
Sige,
can
go ahead.
respond very briefly on some points raised in the affidavit without prejudice to the submission of a written comment on my part. Okay. On point number 1, unjustifiable inaction and gross incompetence in pursuing cases before the DOJ, the oppositor cites the case of Makilala. She's accusing me of incompetence and inaction in handling this case. But the records would show that I actually acted on the complaints or allegations of Mr. Makilala when I created a task force or a fact-finding committee. And as the oppositor is really aware of, the committee or the fact-finding committee has released its report and recommendation. And I submitted the report and recommendation to the Office of the President. My latest action was referring it to the Office of the Executive Secretary because the official being charged then, excuse me, is a presidential appointee. And therefore, I don't think that this accusation holds water. I did my part in initiating an investigation into those allegations of Mr. Makilala. We also placed him under witness protection program on request of the oppositor, and I forwarded the report and recommendation to the Office of the President for its appropriate action, the former director of Pangilinan being a presidential appointee. And as we know, this actually triggered his resignation as then Bucor director. And I also understand from the oppositor that they even also went to the Ombudsman, and the case is now pending before the Ombudsman. Next point po, incompetence as chairwoman of the Commission on Human Rights. My record, my performance as CHR chairperson for only 2 years is a matter of public knowledge. You be the judge whether I've been remiss or I've been incompetent in discharging such a sensitive mandate. Failure to afford protection to civil liberties, citing unabated media killings, lack of prosecution. I, of course, deplore, as much as the oppositor here, the spate of media killings. But to say that I have never acted on any of those, or I've been inefficient in discharging my mandate in investigating and prosecuting the media killings, is farthest from the truth. I was responsible, Your Honors, in asking or in proposing to the President the creation of an interagency committee, a high-level agency committee to investigate and extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance, torture, and other grave human rights violations. And the President, acting on my recommendation, issued Administrative Order number 35. Now we've been working, the committee has been working regularly on these cases of extrajudicial killings, especially media killings. And if I may share some statistics with respect to media killings, we continuously monitor the progress of these media killings at whatever stage, whether under the police investigation stage, under preliminary investigation, or trial. And from 2001 to 2014, Your Honors, there are a total of 54 confirmed to be work-related media killings. That's from 2001 to 2014. Of course, there are more reported incidents of media killings, but we assess each and every case and determine whether they are work-related so as to be categorized as extrajudicial killings. Although the validation or the verification of whether media killings can be considered as EJ case is actually a work in progress. And out of the 54 confirmed to be work-related media killings, as I said, under various stages, this is the breakdown. 12 under police or NBI investigation, 6 cases under preliminary investigation, 12 pending trial, and there are several that have been terminated or concluded, resulting in 10 convictions, acquittals, 4 dismissals. And out of the 10 convictions, Your Honors, 4 or 40% were posted during this administration. 1 was provisionally dismissed, 1 case was archived, and 3 cases, there were deaths of suspects, or the suspects or the accused died. So contrary to the belief of the oppositor, we continuously act on media killing cases. We monitor them very closely through that mechanism under Administrative Order number 35. Next point. Gross incompetence in an undue grant of favors and benefits to Napoles. It is regrettable that that is the impression of the oppositor, that I'm being biased to Mrs. Napoles. Mrs. Napoles was the one, through her lawyers, was the one who approached me and indicated her desire to allegedly or supposedly tell all. As part of our truth-seeking mandate, why wouldn't I listen? Whether or not it was a case of tell all, whether or not she's telling the truth, whether or not she is partly telling the truth and partly lying, at least it's worth listening to. And that is why we have never taken her word for it. As a matter of fact, may I officially inform this honorable body that we are currently undertaking a validation or a vetting or further fact-finding precisely to determine which of the allegations of Napoles in her 2 affidavits thus far have some basis, or which are with insufficient basis and which are without basis. Is all just part, Your Honor, of our truth-seeking mandate. I've told some people that I find myself in a damn if you do or damn if you don't situation now. Because if I suddenly stop pursuing the allegations of Mrs. Napoles, then some quarters and maybe the opposition would accuse us of trying to cover up the allies that have been implicated in the Napoles affidavits. If I pursue, on the other hand, if I'm pursuing this, and which I do, I'm indeed pursuing this, then some people are quick to accuse me of lawyering for Mrs. Napoles, which is an unfair accusation. My only plea, Your Honors, to the oppositor and to the people, to allow us job, to continue our job, and you be the judge later, after all of these things are concluded, because we have a long way to go in investigating this very complicated case of the Duff Napoles scam. So no basis po. Gross incompetence, and by the way, there is an allegation here about the resolution in the serious illegal detention case filed by Ben Hurloy against Napoles. And there is some insinuation, it was reported that the multi-million package for the NBI DOJ family changed hands as a result of the dismissal of the case. I absolutely deny this. This is, in the first place, it's just a report, a baseless report. There is an insinuation that the dismissal at first of the illegal detention case filed by Ben Hurloy was for a consideration, or was irregular. And I'm being accused of being part of that. In the first place, the serious illegal detention case went through the regular preliminary investigation case that was handled by a panel of prosecutors. The panel of prosecutors initially recommended for the dismissal of the serious illegal detention case. But on motion for reconsideration, a review resolution, which is approved by the Prosecutor General, reversed the finding of lack of probable cause and recommended the filing of criminal information in court. That's why we have this case already before the RTC Makati, and that is why Mrs. Napoles is under continued detention. I had nothing to do with those resolutions because they are part of the process of the DOJ. It never reached me. Under the usual regular legal in the department with respect to cases under preliminary investigation, after a case has been resolved at the preliminary investigation stage, the aggrieved party or the losing party would have the right to file a petition for review. And once a petition for review is filed, that is assigned to an undersecretary. And once an undersecretary resolves that petition for review and the aggrieved party at that level files a motion for reconsideration, that is the only time that the Secretary of Justice will interfere by acting on the motion for reconsideration. What happened in this case is that the former lawyer of Mrs. Napoles, instead of elevating the review resolution at the PI level to the Department of Justice itself via a petition for review, they went to the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals dismissed that petition. In other words, the Court of Appeals and even the Regional Trial Court, which is now trying the case, had already affirmed the finding of probable cause against Mrs. Napoles. So
Mr.
dumaan po
Chairman,
sa proseso yan, wala pong...
Excuse me, Madam Secretary,
Bago po
Senator
magpatuloy
Estrada.
si
Yes.
Secretary De Lima. Secretary De Lima, weren't you aware that there was already an illegal detention case? Hindi ba kayo aware?
Of course I was aware.
You were aware.
Yes, sir.
Pero sabi niya wala kayong alam.
I never said wala po akong alam. I think what I said is I have nothing to do with those resolutions because those resolutions never reached me.
All right. Were you aware that Mrs. Napoles even wrote the president a letter?
It turned out,
Yeah.
yes, it was
Did you
reported in the papers.
Yes. Have you read the letter Napoles addressed to the president?
I think so, yes, Your Honor.
Excuse us, for a while, sandali. Can we have some silence, please, while Senator Estrada is asking his questions, please? Okay na?
Have you read the letter of Mrs. Napoles addressed to the president?
I think I read that, Your Honor.
What was the action of the president?
It was actually referred to me for
Yes.
comment.
Was there a marginal note of the president?
I don't remember, sir.
Or what did the president tell you?
For comment. He asked for comment on that letter.
Yes.
And
Was there a
since-
marginal note on the letter?
I'm not sure if it was a marginal note of the president himself. It's probably a note
All right, Madam Secretary.
given by her secretary, his secretary, the president's
Okay,
secretary,
Madam Nami, can I
on
have,
instruction of
can
the
I have
president.
a letter?
I don't have it right now,
Yes, can you submit it before this committee?
Your Honor.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
try to trace if indeed we have a copy, but I think I've seen that letter.
All right. Maybe you have it in your files in the office.
Trace po.
All right, thank you. You may proceed.
Proceed, Madam Secretary, if you have still something to say.
Next point po. On the incident regarding former Palawan ex-governor Joel Reyes and Mario Reyes, or the Reyes brothers, it seems to me that the accusation of the oppositor is that I was a party to their escape simply because he was a former client. I don't deny that he is a former client. I have several former clients in all branches or in all levels of government because I used to be an election lawyer. But to insinuate or accuse me of being a party, illegal act of escaping as a fugitive from justice, that is too much. I will never do that. I, in fact, directed the BI to investigate that, and I can even show you a communication from then Commissioner a memorandum forwarded to me by the BI, where I directed to intensify the search for the Reyes brothers. And that incident was actually investigated internally by the BI, which resulted in the dismissal from service of 2 BI employees found to be responsible in facilitating such escape. So these are 2, one administrative aide and another is a security guard. So the results of the investigation show that they were complicit in the escape because this was not recorded in the BI database. They're fleeing the country.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Your
if I
Honor.
may, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
sir. Sentence lang.
Do you know personally Governor Reyes?
Yes, Your Honor, because he was a former client.
He was your former client.
Yes, Your Honor.
During
When he
election.
was a Palawan governor, way back, I'm not sure what year, but it was early on when I was an election law practitioner. He was a client for only one election.
Okay. And he is still your friend.
Pardon po?
And he is still your friend up to now.
Up to now, I have no communication whatsoever with him.
When was
Your
the
Honor.
last
I
time
don't
you
know.
spoke with him?
I'm not sure po.
Years?
Few years ago.
During the case?
During the case, I don't recall. During the case, what do you mean case, sir?
This case. Itong kaso ni Governor Reyes.
The murder case.
Yes,
You
the
mean
murder
the double murder case?
Have you talked to him?
I'm not sure anymore, Your Honor, if I received a text message or 1 or 2
All right.
text
If you
message
can
early on, Your Honor.
If you can just recall, what did he say?
He was feigning. He was claiming. He was asking for fairness in the handling of the case.
And then what did you say?
Of course, I can guarantee fairness as I do. I prefer.
Didn't you give him more
let-
preference
can-
because
can
he was your former client?
Of course not, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
I never do that.
Okay.
Of course, I prefer that litigants never talk to me or never communicate to me, whether through text or in person or through emissary. But the reality is, some litigants would try to talk to me. But I can say that I don't recall any litigant who would really insist on favoring him or her, because I will not have that. I cannot do that, and I cannot give such a favor.
Going back to your stint as the chairman of the Commission on Human Rights, Madam Chair, how much salary were you receiving then? Just give me a ballpark figure, Madam Chair.
Less than 100,000, I think,
Less than 100,000 as commissioner.
as
As chairman.
chairperson. The basic salary.
All right.
There were some allowances.
How much was the allowance that you were receiving?
A total of
How much is your take-home pay a month?
60 to 70,
Only.
70 to 80.
Including the
I'm not
allowances?
sure anymore.
Including the allowances.
I think so, Your Honor.
Isn't it true when you were appointed as the chairperson of the CHR, who recommended you to Ms. Arroyo?
Not sure who recommended. There were probably some. There were probably several.
Isn't it Governor Reyes who recommended you to that position?
I'm not aware of that.
You were not aware of it. All right. When you were already the chairman or the chairperson of the CHR, didn't you give a call to Governor Reyes and told him, gutom pala dito, wala pala akong kikitain dito?
Of course not.
Oh, you never said
I don't know
that.
where you got that, sir.
All right. Aside from this 60 to 70,000 that you take home a month as your job as the chairman of chairperson of the CHR, wala ka na ba ibang allowances na kinukuha?
Then that is supposed to be from the
No,
government.
outside of the CHR,
Wala po.
isn't it true that Ms. Arroyo gave you an additional 1 million a month coming from PAGCOR as your allowance, additional allowance?
There was a confidential fund allotted to the CHR.
O ba't hindi niyo po
But that additional allowance, sir.
How much was it?
Various amounts.
Ranging from
500,
a month?
not a month, sir. Sometimes it's about quarterly, but not monthly.
Quarterly? Quarterly, 500,000
As
quarterly?
confidential funds, intelligence funds po.
No, I don't believe that. You're receiving a monthly allowance of 1 million. Sayang, namatay na yun si Mrs. Ching Vargas, yung dating sa Malacanang. She was the one who kept the records that you were receiving 1 million monthly allowance from PAGCOR as instructed by President Arroyo. Anyway, you may continue, Madam Chair. Madam Nominee.
Continue, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. The next point, sir. I responded to the Reyes. Wala na po akong
Thank you, Madam Secretary. But would this committee still be expecting a written
Yes, Your Honor.
reply from you? Okay.
if I may I ask,
I continue, ma'am.
the committee to give me that?
Yes, ma'am. Kasi, you know, as I manifested earlier, we will grant the request of Senator Alan Peter Cayetano for another hearing. So, can you submit it not later than Monday so that we will have time to go over your written reply?
Yes, Your Honor. I will try to submit that this Friday, at the latest this Friday.
Yes, we will proceed to questions now from the committee member, Senator Estrada. But let me thank muna Ms. Sandra Cam. Thank you. You have questions for? Hindi. We will now proceed to sige, okay, let me recognize Senator Estrada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just would like to put on record that I do not have any intentions of blocking the confirmation of the nominee right now, lest I be misinterpreted of having a grudge against her. No, I do not have a grudge against her. Madam Secretary, are you running for a higher office next elections
I have no such plans at the moment, sir.
at the moment? All right. You have answered all the allegation against you in the affidavit submitted by Mrs. Sandra Cam, but you haven't addressed this controversial.
Senator Estrada, I gave her the option to address whatever she wants to address because she has said that she will file a written reply. Just to clarify.
With regard to this private life?
So it was really her option to address which issues she wants
So you
to
don't want to
address.
answer this allegations
I would
regarding your
prefer
private
not
life
to
in public?
publicly engage in so far as those issues are concerned.
So you want it
It's too
written?
demeaning for me.
All right. I respect that, Madam Chair.
Anything more, sir? Continue. Oh, thank you, Senator Estrada. So we will proceed to questions from committee members, if any. We'd like to thank Ms. Sandra Cam And we want to assure you, ma'am, that we will take into consideration your sworn opposition when we make our decision, when we cast our vote for either the confirmation or the rejection of the appointment of the secretary, as well as we will also take into account the sworn oppositions of former Congressman Fua, Ms. Libonao, even the letter, the mere letter from this Greek national currently held at the Deliberation. Thank you, Ms. Cam. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, will you allow me to answer Secretary De Lima's answer to my unjustifiable inaction and gross incompetence and pursuing cases lodged before the Department of Justice?
Ms. Cam, can you make it brief so that we'll have
Yes.
time to deliberate also? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Gusto ko lang po ipaalam kay Secretary De Lima na ito pong report of the fact-finding panel, it's a 99-page. This was given to her April 11, 2012. The following day, tinawagan ko po siya because I have a direct access to her. Ang sabi niya sa akin, give me two weeks. Dadalhin ko lang ito sa Office of the President. Then 1 month passed. I called her up again. And she said, marami siyang mga rason. Then I told her, Madam Secretary, mayroon po akong nakuha na kopya ng fact-finding na ginawa mong panel of investigators regarding this case. And the recommendation is indicting General Gaudencio Pangilinan et al. Nandiyan pa yung iba sa loob ng Bucor, ng Bureau of Correction. Ang sabi niya sa akin, saan ka kumuha dyan? Fake yan. And now, Madam Secretary, I want to address this to you. This report has been lying in your office for 2 years and a month now. You never filed a case against General Pangilinan. Kaya po ako, I beg to disagree with you.
Ms. Cam, my attention has been called by the veteran senators here that please address the chair.
Oh,
so
I'm
that
sorry.
This will not be,
Okay, I'm sorry po, Mr.
into a
Chairman.
shouting match. No?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I just want to question why it's now 2 years and 1 month na itong report ay nasa kanya. The worst, tinanggal niya yung whistleblower dito na wala naman ng financial assistance from the government. What he's asking is only to be with his family. She terminated the witness protection program of this guy. Yan po, kaya ako po nandito dahil inilalaban ko po ang kasamahan kong mga whistleblowers. Hindi po ako papayag, Mr. Chairman, na gawin kaming tanga-tangahan because we risk our life here. Simula pag kay Arroyo, lumabas walang kapalit dahil gusto po namin ng tuwid na daan at gusto po namin ang katotohanan. Mr. Chairman, Attorney Leila De Lima is lying to her teeth regarding this panel report. I have seen the chairman of the panel who investigated this case, my respected prosecutor Tugonon. He's here right now. I have this, at hindi po ito fake. Ito lang po, at saka yung Reyes brothers, if you don't want me to touch about her controversial life, I'm really encouraging Secretary De Lima to file a libel case against me so I have a chance to bring the truth to the court. I'm just waiting for the proper forum and a videotape that will show things. That's what I said here in my affidavit. Pangalawa po, Mr. Chairman, please, Your Honors, give me a little time. Because this is the only time that I can tell the whole country and the whole world kung anong nangyari sa mga kaso na ifinail namin, na inilapit namin sa kanya. Like for the case of the flight of Governor Reyes and Mayor Mario Reyes that time. I texted her, Madam Secretary, I got hold of the driver, the witness, na nakita niya kung paano tinatakan ang pasaporte ng dalawang magkapatid dahil siya ang nag-drive sa dalawang magkapatid. Tinatakan sa loob ng kotse, dumaan sa Premier Airport po natin sa Terminal 3, taking the Cebu Pacific flight to Vietnam, hindi po sa departure area, kundi sa arrival area. Nang tinext ko siya, hindi niya ako sinagot. Instead, when the media asked her, she said, rubbish. So I was challenged, I went to Vietnam. Wala po kaming pundo, pero gusto ko lang ipakita that Secretary De Lima is lying. Nakuha ko po ang dokumento na nakalabas si Joel Reyes under the assumed name of Joseph P. Lim at si Mario Reyes lumabas as Mario Reyes pero walang exit dito sa Pilipinas. I was able to get all these documents. I have the flight manifest. Pero anong ginawa po niyo, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman? Inutil.
Mo'y mahalaga, kaya magparehistro na. Magpunta lang sa COMELEC office ng inyong lugar. Huwag kalimutang magpakita ng isang valid ID na may litrato at pirma para ma-verify ang rehistro mo. Ma-verify, bibigyan ka ng 3 kopya ng application form para fill-upan. Pagkatapos ay kukunan ka ng biometrics gamit ang voter registration machine at ibibigay ang iyong resibo. Sa pagpili ng tamang namumuno, nakasalalay ang kinabukasan ng bawat Pilipino. Bumoto, magparehistro. Isang napapanahong panawagan ng inyong telebisyon ng bayan sa pakikipagtulungan ng Commission on Elections. 101, kalamang magagamit ng bawat Pilipino. Ngayong buwan ng ating kasarinlan, alamin ang wastong pagbibigay pugay sa ating pambansang awit. Ang Lupang Hinirang ay isang marcha at dapat kantahin ayon sa orihinal na areglo ni Julian Felipe. Kapag ito ay narinig, tumayo ng matuwid, humarap sa watawat, at ilagay ang kanang kamay sa kaliwang dibdib habang inaawit. Ito ay pwedeng kantahin sa mga pandaigdigan at pambansang kompetisyon, sa sign-off ng mga himpilan ng radyo at telebisyon, at sa screening ng mga sine at pagtatanghal sa teatro. Yan ang tamang paggalang sa Lupang Hinirang, simbolo ng tunay na pagkamakabayan ni Juan. 101, kuntil-butil na kaalaman for everyone. Hatid sa inyo ng inyong telebisyon, ang bayan. Health Watch, alertong pangkalusugan. Mag-ingat sa Middle East Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus o MERS-CoV, isang sakit na wala pang mabisang gamot o vaccine. Una itong naitala sa Saudi Arabia noong 2012. Kabilang sa mga sintomas nito ang lagnat, pag-ubo, hirap sa paghinga, at diarrhea na tumatagal ng 2 linggo. Ito ay maaaring mauwi sa kidney failure at maging sanhi ng kamatayan. Para maiwasan, laging maghugas ng kamay. Gumamit ng at patatagin ang immune system sa pamamagitan ng wastong nutrisyon, ehersisyo, sapat na tulog, at palagi ang pag-inom ng tubig. Tandaan, ngayong panahon ng tagsakit, huwag malito. Dapat laging listo. ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, a family of 10 nations found in the southeastern sub-region of Asia. It is composed of Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. A forerunner of the ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asia, or ASA. ASA is a regional bloc of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand that was formed in 1961. ASEAN, however, was born on August 8, 1967 in Bangkok, when the foreign ministers of Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and the Philippines met in Bangkok to sign the ASEAN Declaration that formally established what is now known as the Association of Southeast Asians. These 5 ministers are referred to as the founding fathers of the ASEAN. Their vision was to unite all Southeast Asian nations, which was realized when ASEAN expanded to include Brunei Darussalam on January 8, 1984. To become one ASEAN community. ASEAN, we are many, but one. Welcome to ASEAN. The ASEAN region straddles 10 majestic countries. And from each of these countries sprang a unique form of government that when placed side by side with the rest in the region would be a study in contrasts and similarities. Today, this dynamic and bustling region embraces a diverse collection of governmental systems of no less than 3 constitutional monarchies, 1 absolute monarchy, 2 socialist republics, and 4 democracies. Brunei Darussalam is an independent sultanate headed by a sultan. Its government is an absolute monarchy, which makes the sultan both a head of state or a ceremonial leader, and a head of government or an actual ruler. Cambodia is a constitutional monarchy. It is headed by a prime minister and the king, who is elected from a number of candidates with royal blood. Under a constitutional monarchy as well, Thailand is ruled by a king who currently is the world's longest-serving head of state and longest reigning monarch in Thai history. Thailand also has a prime minister for its head of government. Malaysia's form of government is a federal parliamentary under a constitutional monarchy. Its king is known as the Yang Di Pertuan Agong, who is elected to a 5-year term by and from among the 9 hereditary rulers of the Malay states. Its head of government is a prime minister. Lao People's Democratic Republic is a single-party socialist republic where the Lao People's Revolutionary Party is the only legal political party. Lao PDR is led by a president as head of state and a prime minister as head of government. Vietnam is likewise a single-party socialist republic that is ruled by the Communist Party of Vietnam. It is also led by a president as head of state and a prime minister as head of government. Singapore is a parliamentary republic. It has a president who is the head of state and a prime minister who is the head of government. Myanmar is a constitutional republic headed by a president as both head of state and government. Indonesia, the largest among the countries in the ASEAN region in terms of territory, is a republic led by a president who is both the head of state and head of government. The Philippines, which is also known as the oldest democracy in Asia, is also a republic headed by a president as both head of state and government. 10 countries, 10 governments, sharing differences, sharing similarities. A place where each nation's life and destiny are inextricably linked to the rest of the other ASEAN member states in the region. This is ASEAN. We are many, but one.
Ang susunod ay rated G. Ito ay pwede sa lahat ng manonood.
Comfort is my